One mission and one mission only. Find and kill chaos. The elements are imbalanced and at a disarray. Darkness now shrouds all of Cornelia, leaving it in great peril. As the prophesized warriors of light step into the shoes of Jack and his companions as they venture to distant lands, fueled by a single purpose: to find and kill chaos and restore order and balance to the world. Welcome to Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. Have you ever wanted to get into the Souls games, but find them far too intimidating and difficult to get started? Well then, let me tell you why Stranger of Paradise is the perfect game for you to take your first step into the genre. Stranger of Paradise is Square Enix's spin on the popular Souls games. And what better way for them to enter the fray than to use their flagship franchise, Final Fantasy. Now sit back as I tell you why this game should be your entry point to the highly revered action RPG subgenre. Just a quick disclaimer before I begin. I usually start my videos by giving a warning that I will provide spoilers to the game's story. However, this time around, I will only be discussing the starting events of the game. The rationality for this is that I believe that the story should be experienced, as my storytelling techniques are insufficient to do it justice. So without further ado, let us begin. Set before the events of Final Fantasy I, our protagonist Jack is a mercenary with a single goal: to kill chaos. He has no memory of his past, and his motive to put an end to chaos is shrouded in mystery.
All I care about is seeing chaos dead. I need to. It's not a hope or a dream. It's like a hunger, a thirst.
Alongside Jack are his two companions, Jed and Ash, who are also afflicted with amnesia, believing that they will find answers by assisting Jack in his endeavor. Convinced that they are the prophesized warriors of light, the King of Cornelia grants Jack, Jed, and Ash his blessing to embark on a journey to seek and destroy chaos, to cleanse the world of darkness, and restore order. With their mission set in stone, the team departs Cornelia to slay the hidden nemesis, restore their lost memories, and uncover the truth. I know what you might be thinking, but Gray, I thought you said that the story is a worthwhile experience. Why is it that it sounds so vanilla and nothing I have not heard of before? And to that I say, you're going to have to trust me. I guarantee that you will not see what is coming, because I sure didn't. It may sound generic at face value now, but expect the unexpected, as the game takes twists and turns that I could not have imagined. All I ask is that you give this game a chance, should you decide to pick up this highly underrated gem. If you're still skeptical that this is not your run-of-the-mill JRPG story, hopefully this could set your mind at ease. Take a glimpse on how Jack interacts in various situations.
Hoping some band of heroes would defeat me, and thus bring an end to this empty dream.
Bullshit.
It will remain a dream so long as I live. Who I am.
I don't give a fuck who you are!
My crew, my friends, the darkness seduced them like a siren.
Yeah, we noticed.
That sure does not seem like tropes to me. Now that we covered the story of the game, let us discuss the most vital component, and that is the gameplay. As I mentioned previously, Stranger of Paradise is Final Fantasy's take on the popular Souls genre. A fast-paced action role-playing game where one wrong move can utterly punish and destroy you for your carelessness. Why are there so many of them? Great. Didn't see that. That was fast. Ugh. You may be asking at this point, if I should expect to die often, then how is it any different from all the other Souls games? Fret not, as I will explain why this game will get the ball rolling for you to enter the genre. I will begin by pointing out the most obvious reason why Stranger of Paradise is friendlier to Souls games newcomers, and that is the option to choose the difficulty level. That's right, contrary to the norm where you're unable to scale the difficulty, Stranger of Paradise offers players the ability to customize how easy or difficult they would like their gameplay experience to be. There are 4 difficulty levels: story, action, hard, and chaos. While the easier levels provide less aggressive opponents and require less skill, such as perfect parrying, the harder difficulties yield greater rewards and more punishing mechanics should you get defeated. Speaking of defeat, here's another reason why Stranger of Paradise is a good entry point to the Souls genre. A core mechanic of a Souls game is that upon death, the player loses all experience points or souls accumulated from enemies they have defeated. And in order to retrieve those lost points, players have to return to where they died and pick it up. Failure to do so along the way and die again, however, those points are gone forever. In Stranger of Paradise, dying is far more forgiving than this convention. Depending on the difficulty you're in, suffering defeat in combat will merely result in a reduction of your mana points, or MP, which gives you the ability to perform various magic or combat abilities. And the experience points that you have accumulated prior to your death? That's right, you get to keep them. A huge deviation from the standard that I believe makes it friendlier for new players of the genre. This way, it is far less punishing and frustrating, all while having players hone their skills for more difficult levels or other Souls games in the future. Apart from more leniency in defeat, another reason why Stranger of Paradise is an excellent entry point is its flexibility, whereby you receive so many options, so much so that experimentation is encouraged. Whether it is your standard sword and shield or great sword, to more out-of-the-ordinary weaponry such as knuckles to pummel, swift ninja shurikens to strike from a distance, and even devastating rifles, you will find no shortage of available arsenal to utilize against your foes. Each enemy has its respective resistances and weaknesses to particular weapons, so it is within your best interest to experiment with the various equipment available. Or you may opt to just stick to your favorite arsenal. Either way, it is entirely up to you on how you want to approach it. But wait, weapons are not the only flexible aspect in combat. Just as there are multitudes of weapons available, so too are the classes. Stranger of Paradise boasts a whopping 28 classes broken down to 3 categories: Basic, Advanced, and Expert. While there are 3 class categories, do not think that the Advanced and Expert classes are superior to the Basic classes. Rather, think of it as potential options to further optimize your playstyle. The reason for the segregation is merely the game's methods for you to progress to unlock the Advanced and Expert classes. In the beginning, Basic classes are made available to the player, and by achieving mastery in some of these classes, Advanced classes can be unlocked. And by mastering some of the Advanced classes, then subsequently, Expert classes are unlocked. Again, I would like to elaborate that there are no classes that are superior to one another. I would like to emphasize that, given the numerous builds available, it is ultimately up to you to find your preference and master them. Stranger of Paradise encourages experimentation with the various classes, as each class has its own respective job tree. What this means is that leveling up one class will not impede your ability to level another one should you desire. For example, if you decide to use the Knight class, you will still be able to swap and level the Black Mage class. In fact, the game even encourages you to do so, as some of the perks in each of the class applies to all classes. For example, some perks such as increased attack or defense in one class skill tree is not limited to that particular class alone, but rather applies to all classes. So it will definitely be beneficial to level as many, if not all classes, to further strengthen Jack. It is even a fundamental mechanic of combat to be able to instantly swap to a secondary class in the middle of battle. So it is a matter of finding your ideal builds and mastering them to take on stronger opponents. If you are still on the fence as to why Stranger of Paradise is great for beginners of the Souls games, Let me provide you another reason why that is. Fans of Final Fantasy will no doubt have a treat in the map designs of the game, as each of the levels are inspired based on the mainline Final Fantasy games. From the heating fire caverns of Final Fantasy VIII, the murky evil forest of Final Fantasy IX, the freezing path of Mount Gagazet of Final Fantasy X, and even the iconic reactor of Final Fantasy VII, and many more. Final Fantasy enthusiasts will appreciate the references scattered throughout the game. What makes the level design fundamentally more approachable for new players of the Souls genre is its linear structure. In an era in gaming where game worlds are increasingly becoming larger and more open, I believe that it can be daunting for new players of the Souls games to let them freely explore, such as the likes of Elden Ring. In order to attract new players intimidated by the genre, I believe that you must first let them play a more linear guided path to ease the transition rather than simply throwing them to an open world where they are most likely to encounter overpowered opponents. Which is why I perceive the linear level design of Stranger of Paradise to be a positive feature rather than a negative one. So far, we have discussed 4 strong reasons why Stranger of Paradise is a great entry point to the Souls genre. First is your ability to choose the difficulty level of the game, whether you would like to focus on the story or all the way up to being a masochist where one hit can cause your downfall. Second is the game's leniency in the death mechanic, where you retain your experience points and simply lose MP should you fall in battle. Third is how flexible your build can be in the context of various weapons and classes. Fourth is the linear level design in order for players to not stray and ensure they are not fighting over-leveled opponents, at least in the early phases of the game. What I didn't mention in the first reason is that after you beat the main story, the game even pushes on how easy and how difficult you want the game to be. To mitigate story spoilers, I will simply mention specifics. In the post-game, you can tweak the difficulty to as easy as literally making yourself invulnerable, and I mean literally that you cannot be killed, to as tough as fighting foes that are hundreds of levels above you. In a nutshell, you can tailor your gameplay experience in accordance with your difficulty preference. Another distinct feature that makes Stranger of Paradise a generally easier Souls-like experience is the execution of the stamina gauge system. Or should I say, the break gauge. In Stranger of Paradise, players must be wary of 3 resources: health points or HP, MP, and what is called the break gauge, which is this game's terminology for stamina gauge. However, unlike in other Souls games, where the stamina gauge is a resource that must be meticulously managed, the break gauge in Stranger of Paradise has a far more lenient approach. The break gauge, rather than a depleting resource for every offensive and defensive action the player does, is a means to either block or parry attacks from opponents. If you successfully perform a perfect parry, or what is known as the Soul Shield, you will even be rewarded with recovery of MP, which you can then subsequently use to strategize and perform your spells and abilities. For some cases, particularly when the ability of the opponent is colored purple, a successfully timed Soul Shield will cause you to absorb the attack and use it as your own. This is referred to as instant abilities, where how often you can use them is through a limited frequency or number of times rather than consuming your MP. Do keep in mind, however, that excessive use of the Soul Shield will deplete your break gauge, and in the event that your character gets struck, this will cause you to be stunned for a significant amount of time and exponentially increase your likelihood of defeat. So proper utilization remains key to success. In essence, for the break gauge and Soul Shield, not only is it less difficult than your standard stamina gauge, but it is far more nuanced and rewarding. But wait, there's more. Not only does the break gauge apply to you, but to the enemies as well. And yes, that includes boss fights. Contrary to other Souls games, where only you manage your stamina, enemies in Stranger of Paradise also need to look out for their break gauge. Because if you manage to deplete the enemy's gauge, they will be stunned and vulnerable, leaving you to deal a killing blow, which is known as the Soul Burst. Ooh. Not only is this very convenient, but activating a soul burst will also result in the partial restoration of MP. It is also important to note that you do not need to reduce the enemy's HP down to 0 to activate this. Yes, you heard correctly. You need not empty an opponent's HP to defeat them like you normally would, and instead deplete the break gauge to perform a soul burst, and as I implied earlier, this applies to bosses as well. Oh! What? He has a phase 3? Oh, never mind. Never mind. In fact, so much so that you will most likely be killing most of your opponents through soul bursts rather than the traditional method of depleting their entire HP. Truly, the stamina mechanics of this game displays far more leniency and compensation in comparison to other Souls games, further solidifying another reason why Stranger of Paradise makes a great entry point to the genre. And if somehow, despite all the reasons I mentioned, that you believe it is still too difficult for you, then you can always call a friend. Whether you manage to bring in some friends to play, or simply searching for other players online, Stranger of Paradise features cooperative multiplayer, where you can bring in up to 2 friends to assist you in combat. Do take note that playing online will replace your AI allies with players, but based on my experience, that is indeed a blessing. Because Stranger of Paradise fundamentally measures player progress through their level and strength of equipment, it is not uncommon at this point, since the game's release, for you to encounter players who have very powerful character builds. And when I say powerful, I do mean powerful.
Anything we can use? The water's protecting it! This can't be good!
This one must be the tyrant of the forest. Disgusting. I want it out of my sight.
Only one left to go.
If you are concerned with having to share loot in battle, fear not, as this is not the case. Whatever you pick up is not visible for your teammates, now that I have provided compelling reasons why Stranger of Paradise is a good entry point to the Souls genre. Allow me to discuss why Stranger of Paradise is in itself a great game. Let me start things off with the visuals, since I already touched on this earlier with the level design. In modern standards, while definitely far off from top-tier graphical prowess, it, shall I say, is still a sight to behold, and Stranger of Paradise elevates itself with its character design. You will find no shortage of available appealing apparel scattered throughout the game. And the best part is, unlike many Souls games, Stranger of Paradise features transmogrify. In the event that you find stronger equipment, but the appearance is not to your liking, then you can just retain your preferred appearance of another armor, all while keeping the attributes of your stronger equipment piece. Character models, along with visual effects and particles, are brimming with colorful details that we have come to expect from games developed by Square Enix. In the context of performance, rarely have I experienced any issues, at least on the PS5. This is definitely my preference over state-of-the-art visual fidelity, but suffering from gameplay framerate hiccups, which is sadly the excruciating norm of modern gaming. I mentioned previously that level design will be a treat for Final Fantasy fans. Likewise, Stranger of Paradise utilizes creatures from the franchise, whether you love or hate them depending on your disposition, You will find familiar creatures in this game. From the legendary chef's knife of the Thornberry, to the 1,000 prickly needles of the Cactuar, and who could ever forget the disgusting bad breath of the Marlboro? Final Fantasy enthusiasts will find no shortage of encountering household monsters throughout the franchise. Truly, the visuals of this game are a spectacle. Equally as compelling and immersive is the game's audio. Stranger of Paradise is not without its stellar cast of voice actors throughout the game. As you have already heard earlier, the effort placed to infuse life into the characters is nothing short of amazing.
The people love her.
Like a flower blooming in a dark wasteland.
Come on, Jack. Wouldn't kill you to smile for once.
Jack, you've returned. And with a few more scars.
Nah, it's nothing. Jack has the best medicine.
That's wonderful. In that case, if it's not too much trouble, would you be able to spare some for our soldiers in the castle?
Also complementing the remarkable voice acting is the adrenaline-raising music in the thrill of combat, along with the appropriate background music to set the mood of various cutscenes. Indeed, adequate resources were placed in creating great audio, further increasing immersion of the game. The main story of Stranger of Paradise took me around 15 to 20 hours to complete. Though that may seem below average in JRPG length standards, the game does offer a ton of post-game content. It will depend how invested you are in the game's loop and combat. If you are truly into the mechanics, I dare say you will reap hundreds upon hundreds of game hours due to the structure of post-game. After defeating the final boss, you will be provided access to go through all the chapters once again in higher difficulties. Finishing them will yield greater rewards such as increased level caps for classes and other resources to further strengthen your team. And if you're still wanting more content, you can always grab the Season Pass that features new characters, classes, equipment, abilities, enemies, and even expounds on the story further. Do keep in mind, however, that the Season Pass is geared towards the most hardcore players of the game and pushes them to their limits, requiring maximum optimization of their builds. And when all is said and done, this is why Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is good. The game tells the extraordinary story of Jack and his companions as they unravel the mysteries of the disturbances of Cornelia and the veiled truth. It features multiple gameplay mechanics that are friendlier from that of a traditional Souls game, making it an excellent entry point to the genre. The fantastic art style and visuals, while maintaining a consistent performance, is a sight to behold, and I expected nothing less from Square Enix. Audio was given just as much care and attention, whether it is the voice acting or the background music. Combat is fast and slick, and will definitely keep you on your toes, brimming with content. And that concludes the video. If you have made it this far, I would like to say thank you, and do subscribe if you have not already, as it truly supports the channel. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.
You have one too, don't you?
My mission is to kill Chaos. That's all I know.
Me too.
Good. We're all on the same hunt.
I'm Jack.
Jed.
Ash.